Good evening and welcome to the Chandelier Chanticleer show. I'm Hayden, joined by my good friend Matthew Kinlaw out of UNC. Usually this is a show where I talk about Coastal Carolina. However, I am a diehard Miami fan. We play UNC this weekend, so I'm excited that Matt have on the show. Matt, go on and tell us what your degree is at Carolina and tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, so at Carolina, I'm a senior. I major in sport administration, which is exercise sports science track. I have a podcast called the Carolina Way Podcast, which we just talk about Carolina basketball, football, and some Olympic sports. And then my Twitter account personally is Matt Kinlaw _22. And if you want to follow the podcast, you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and we are the Carolina Way Pod 2 on Twitter.
Yeah, definitely give that a listen. When I'm bored at work, I actually turn it on quite often. I saw the one with the British Tar Heel, and you guys break down of Virginia Tech. You went to the Virginia Tech game, so you got to experience the Enter Sandman. One thing actually, between me and you people would think that I would have applied to Miami, you would apply to Carolina. You applied to both, and I applied to neither, and came to Coastal. So go on and give me a rundown of why did you choose going to Carolina over Miami?
That's a good question. Let's see. I want to give Miami credit here. Miami was a dream school of mine. I was originally a journalism guy, and Miami is known for broadcast journalism. But let me not lie to your followers. The reason I like Miami is because it's Miami. I mean, if you go to the city of Miami, I've been 3 times now. It's beautiful. Sports are great. Beautiful scenery and everything. The ultimate reason why I chose Carolina was I actually was waitlisted by Miami, not waitlisted by Carolina, which, and then Miami is private and it's out of state, even if it wasn't private. So money-wise, it just made sense to go to Carolina. And I grew up a big-time Carolina fan. Carolina is also great at journalism. And it was honestly, in the end, an easy decision with the money and just being my love for Carolina. So that's really why I chose. But trust me, I've often thought about what would have happened if I went to Miami.
Dude, I'm in the same boat. Like you said, it's a private school. You're looking at 4 years minimum without scholarships. You're looking at about $200,000, almost $250,000. I had average grades, and then my test scores were below average, but I played 4 sports. I was in a bunch of clubs. Could I have gotten into Miami? Maybe. The reason why I didn't apply, I didn't want to put myself in that situation whereas what if I got into Miami? Mm-hmm. I would have gone without a doubt. Would I be down $250,000? Absolutely. Would I ever get out of the debt? I should. Being a degree from is very valuable, just like UNC. But like you said, the cost is a lot cheaper. I'm at Coastal Carolina where I'm still only in 5 digits in debt, not 6. So it's a lot better. But same question, though, like you being a Carolina fan, you are from North Carolina. So, that doesn't make sense. I know you and your dad grew up watching a bunch of Carolina basketball. Me, on the other hand, born in Ohio, lived in Michigan, grew up going to games in the big house, moved to Virginia. I moved to North Carolina for a majority of my life. Why are you a Miami fan? Well, very quick story. When I was a little kid, I was about 8, 9 years old. Went to a Miami Wake Forest baseball game for free with my dad. My dad's a high school coach. So we go there, and before the game, a guy by the name of Blake Ducote, who went on to play for the San Diego Padres for a little bit, gave me a bet. So I said, okay, I'll start liking Miami baseball. Next couple years go by, and surely enough, the GM and the head coach recognized me, Jim Morris, and GM is what we could call him. His name is Robert McDaniel, but both those guys recognized me, like, hey, come to the dugout, be our bat boy. So for the next 4 or 5 years, I would go be their bat boy. I would stay in the team hotel. I got to travel with the team. They fed me. They gave me a bunch of free stuff, which is legal by the NCAA. Just throwing them out there. But they would, give me hats, shirts. They would feed me. They would, let me stay on the team floor. Eat team breakfast with them for NCAA regionals and all that cool stuff. So that's how I became a Miami fan. I was super weird because I have to cheer for Miami and obviously Coastal because I'm a Coastal student. But let's get to the fun part.
I had a quick question.
Yeah, what's up?
Are you sure they weren't recruiting you as a kicker, Hayden? Like, let's be real. Are you sure this was all legal?
Dude, honestly, a lot of the guys would ask me about when I got to middle school. That's kind of when I became, I was hitting. I think I hit a 45-yarder in middle school, not in a game, but in practice.
Yeah.
And all the coaches, would talk to me. How's football going? How you doing in baseball? So were they, maybe, but it was just a good connection that we had, and I knew that personally, realistically, was I good enough to play the sport at Miami? No. Could I have walked on either program? Maybe football. Baseball, that's a highly talented program. We're gonna talk about that in a little bit. But before we get to the fun part here, my mom always said, if you have nothing nice to say, then don't say nothing at all. So that will conclude our show. Thanks for watching, because I had nothing nice to say about the. But that's hey, you know what? Let's get into it though. This game should be a 5-1 Miami team versus a 6-0 Carolina team. College game day should be there. It should be like a 7:30, 8 o'clock kickoff in Chapel Hill. Instead, it's a 3:30, which isn't bad. It gives Miami a lot of time to tailgate. We never lose the tailgate. We crushed the tailgate against Alabama, and then Bama showed up. I don't know what. Miami was still in the parking lot, But dude, let's talk about some disappointment. I mean, what happened to Carolina? I mean, they lost at Virginia Tech, which was expected, kind of, but Georgia Tech and Florida State. What's going on?
So I would like to say that I think Miami and Carolina had similar openings to the season. Obviously, Miami's was much harder, and Carolina was a favorite in theirs. But I think Carolina and Miami fans came out of that first game going, okay, it's a loss. It didn't look good, but the season's not over. Like, we have a long way to go, and it really, in the long run, won't matter if we can turn it around. Well, Carolina fans realized quickly that there's no turnaround, that this is who we are, which is who we've been for a very long time, other than the 1 year under Fedora where we competed for ACC championship. This season, we returned our whole offensive line, returned 22 out of 23 starters from the Orange Bowl last year. We played well against a 5 seed, Texas A&M. But apparently those linemen forgot how to play football, because we cannot block. We returned, obviously, Heisman Howell is what Carolina fans were calling him. Well, that's not going to happen this year. Sam Howell was great for us last year. I still don't think he's been as bad as maybe the media and even some Carolina fans feel this year. When you don't have time and you're kind of reliable on your deep ball, it's hard to put together a good season. But just put together a bad line, young offensive talent, receivers other than Josh Downs, who's absolutely great, can't really get it together. And then the defensive end is so inconsistent. We play great one half, horrible another half. Overall, all those things to me sound like coaching. When you're inconsistent, when your offense can come out and be beating a team 10-0 or 17-0 and then lose that lead by halftime, I have to believe that that's on coaching. But a lot of people have different opinions. Mac Brown, I think, is great. I don't think it's his fault, but I do think he's kind of a GM of Carolina football, so he needs to handle the offense coordinator, defense coordinator, position coaches. Very disappointing season so far, but I always enjoy the Carolina-Miami game because it tends to be a really good game.
Yeah, I do as well. You mentioned Sam Howell. What's that TikTok? When the sun goes down on my.
Don't bring it up.
I had to throw that in there. But yeah, you mentioned the Carolina-Miami game. This is a game that I've personally been to 5 times. And Miami has won one of those games. It's usually a close game. Last time I was there, it came down to a missed field goal. And then Miami also gave up a 4th and 17. So, but it's usually a 1-score game. I mentioned, I'm 1-4 in Chapel Hill as a Miami fan. Let's actually look back on my last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. I'm on a 6-game losing streak as a Canes fan. The last time I saw the Canes win, September 15th, 2018 at Toledo. The last time I saw them win a conference game, November 19, 2017. And wow. I go through a lot of Miami games. So
are you coming to the game Saturday?
I'm coming to the game Saturday. I will be there.
Good for you.
So definitely confirmed Carolina's definitely winning. But no, you mentioned coaching and everything. I just want to mention, Miami briefly. Alabama. Let's be real. We expected it. Did I think we would cover the 18-point spread? Yes. Then our best player, besides our punter, so I'm sorry, our second best player, because our punter is our best player, he got ejected from target in the first quarter. We were down 10-0 Alabama. And I turned around to the Bama fan behind me. I was like, all right, name your score because you're going to get what you want. But, I mean, Miami kind of held their own. They gave up 40-some points, but wasn't terrible. Could have been worse. It could have been a lot worse. Let's be real. We got past it, and then we had App State the next week. And, oh, buddy, you talk about – I think it was App State was the next week. Yeah, 9-11. Almost a huge letdown to an App State team that, beat Marshall by 1, beat ECU late in the fourth quarter, played Elon. They're getting ran by Louisiana right now as we speak. But Miami found a way to win, and App State traditionally has a history of playing ACC teams close, SEC teams, Big Ten, taking them to overtime. And then, they beat Michigan long time ago. And then they beat Carolina and South Carolina in the same year. So, I mean, App State, give them respect. And then, we play Michigan State and get ran out the building. And at the time, we were like, what the heck's wrong with Miami? But then turns out, Michigan State undefeated, top 10 team right now. Mel Tucker's got it turned around. And then we ran Central Connecticut State, and we're like, all right, we scored 69 points. Nice. We're winning the Natty for sure. We're 2-2. And then we played Virginia. Dude, I don't know how to say this without cussing or holding, my temper down. A lot of people think Manny Diaz is the problem. Rhett Lashley is the problem. You mean to tell me you have the ball, I mean, not even on the 1 yard line, it's closer to the goal line than the 1 yard line. You got your quarterback lined up 4 yards in the end zone in shotgun formation. You got your running back 5 yards deep. I don't know if you watch Miami football or not, but they do a lot of quarterback takes the ball, handoff. You know what old buddy does 4.5 yards back in the end zone? Handoff. What happens? Safety. What happens? You lose by 2. And then, let's talk about, the field goal that got doinked. And I knew it. I knew it was going to happen. They had about 1:40 left. They were driving down, and they were just running the ball, trying to angle up for the field goal. And it was at that moment I knew that Regales was going to miss it. Sure enough, my dad even texted me. He was like, don't score too soon. I was like, I don't care. Score when you can. Because I just had that feeling that when you try to set up like that, when you're losing, the odds are you're going to miss it. I mean, let's be real. And sure enough, doinked off the upright. And let's talk about the defense. I thought Manny Diaz was going to kind of get turned around, play, do his play call on defense. Virginia has the ball first and goal, or not first and goal. It was down goal to go on the 1 yard line. They got a 3-man front. I could have walked that ball in. On it. I'm not that big of a defensive guy, but I'm stacking that box. I'm putting five men on the line. I mean, you're going to have to beat me outside. And at that point, I'm Miami. I should have speed to chase you down and not let you get in the end zone. But, I mean, that's my short little tangent on Miami's play call. It's got to be one of the worst that I've seen. I mean, they literally will run the ball 3 straight downs. I mean, first down handoff, second down handoff, third down. I mean, and then King, who is a great runner, I'm like, man, why is he not pulling these? He has 15, 20 yards of green grass in front of him. I was like, dude, they have to be designed. But, King did get injured in the offseason, and now he's out for the rest of the year. So maybe that could help Miami. I don't know. The offensive line is a liability. The offensive line coach and the OC, Rhett Lashley, they both got to be gone before they do anything about Manny Diaz. Another thing that I mentioned you pre-show, what is Miami's issue? Why is Miami struggling? Why can Miami not get it together? Well, and then recently, this past offseason, we lost Chris Likes to Arkansas, one of the most electrifying basketball players in the ACC. Why is he going to Arkansas? Coach L's put some teams together at Miami. He's got, I think, has a winning record against Duke, Carolina, or I think he's even with Carolina now. But he's got winning records against all these huge ACC teams. Then we lose Alex Toro, our best baseball player, to Florida State, a rival. We lost one of our best assistant basketball coaches, Octavia Blue, to another team. How come all of these key players, star players, and not even just them, but more players are transferring out of Miami, not for baseball, men's and women's basketball, football. And then, last year we had like what, 7 scholarship guys on basketball. So I got to wondering, what's happening? Finally got the answer. Julio Frank is the president down at Miami. We got Blake James as the AD, and a lot of people want Blake James out because they thought he was the issue. Turns out Blake would always go to Julio Frank, the president, to kind of, resolve these issues of the athletic programs at Miami. Julio Frank told Blake James that's his thing to worry about. He's not worried about athletics at Miami. So when you have a president that blatantly states he does not care about athletics, who wants to play there? If I'm an athlete and the president of the university, the highest up, does not care, I don't want to play there. So do I blame them for transferring? Absolutely not. Do I think they should stay and, be the change? Of course, but, that's me being a fan. But that's enough of that, man. Let's talk about one thing. Every year I fall for the Mac Brown hype at UNC. This year I thought they were going to go 12-1. The only loss being the Notre Dame, and I thought they were going to beat Clemson in the ACC championship. Of course, I was actually wrong about both of those. I don't think either team makes the conference championship now. But, man, what do you think Mac Brown or Carolina in general needs to do for them to fulfill that hype?
So I love Mac Brown. I think he's the perfect person to lead this program. I'm not sure if he's the best, X's and O's guy, which is fine. I never expected him to be an X's and O's guy when he came here. Since you were roasting your OC, I do want to say, like, Mac hired Phil Longo, who, when we hired him from Ole Miss, I want to say Ole Miss fans said to me, he's great from 20-yard line to 20-yard line, but he is the worst offense coordinator in the country when you need short yardage situations. And that makes sense because Sam Howell, he's turned Sam Howell into a great quarterback, but he's a long ball guy. This year, guys have cut the long ball off, and not only can Sam not produce, Longo can't produce. But overall, I think Mac Brown has to figure out a way to manage the hype a little bit, because the hype got out of hand and it was his fault. He doesn't like to admit this. After the game last week, I don't know if you saw, Hayden, he blamed the media for the hype. Well, Mac, you were going on Cowherd's show. You were going on ESPN every week saying, we're not right there with Clemson yet, but we're trying to be. Or we're not right there with the Alabamas yet. We're trying to be. You're acting like you're right outside. Well, you haven't proved that yet. You had one good year, and it wasn't a great year. So he just has to manage expectations. We are Carolina football. We haven't done it since the 90s, the last time he was here. Be great like that. And then he is continuing to get recruits. But any good program, not great program, any good program has to beat the teams you're supposed to. Listen, I don't mind losing to Miami. I don't mind losing to Notre Dame. Even like Wake Forest building, honestly, a pretty good program. You cannot lose to Georgia Tech and poverty Florida State 2 years in a row. So all I ask of Mac Brown right now, I don't expect the college football playoff. I don't even expect like 12-1 or 10-2 or whatever. I expect you to beat the teams you're supposed to, and I expect you to win the recruiting battle in state. He's doing one of those things, but I'll go ahead and tell you, if he continues to not beat the teams he's supposed to, he's going to lose those in-state recruits. So he's walking a real thin line here. I think he has one more year. If we are not beating the teams we're supposed to next year and just not living up to expectations, I think the short window of making Carolina a good football program is done. So this season's the scratch. You have next season, you have good talent coming in. I've already heard whispers, which this is crazy, Hayden. Maybe go ahead and play Drake May a little bit this year. I don't know. Spencer Rattler got benched last week.
He did.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think Sam's done a lot for the university, switching from Florida State, Carolina, and having a few good years. But it's going to be interesting to see what Mac does. I think some people will be fired after this year. Position coaches, maybe the OC. I don't think the defense coordinator gets fired. But some decisions are going to have to be made. And Mac Brown has what? I mean, with his age, he has 2 to 4 more years. It isn't like we're building long term here. It's not time to build long term. Get it done, or Carolina's same old Carolina.
Yeah, you mentioned Mac only has 2 to 4 years left. Well, Mac needs to do one thing in particular. Being a Miami fan, I love to see it happen. Mac Brown's never beat Florida State. Never. First time at Carolina, second time at Carolina, and the second time at Carolina, this is not the Florida State that he played back then.
No.
This is Florida State that they're losing to FCS teams. And somehow they still beat Carolina. But, you mentioned one thing about hype. And I can't believe it's taken me, this long to bring it out in the show. But, oh, my goodness. You talk about the hype kings, man. You got the Cuban link chains, the turnover chain. 2017 might have been, one of the best years for Miami in a very long time, probably since 2002, 3, right around there, right before we moved to the ACC. But this thing right here, this ain't the OG one. But, oh, my goodness, man, back in 2017 when that thing got brought out, oh, my God, you talk about electrifying and just the defense, they wanted the ball. They wanted that chain. They were one of the best teams in turnover margin. I want, if not the best, in takeaways alone, 2017. Then they had that skid where they lost to Pittsburgh, in a heartbreak. And then they lost to number 1 Clemson, where they got absolutely ran out the building. And this has been a constant problem ever since that day. When I actually sat up top, so I saw all the plays develop and everything. Clemson receivers were wide open that entire time. So I'm like, okay, that's just Clemson. Years later, years go by. Dude, I don't know what Miami DBs do. I don't know what they practice. Against Virginia, the last time Miami played, like two weeks ago, I mean, Virginia had wide open guys. I mean, thank God that they could not catch, because if Virginia could catch, that would not have been a game. Neither team wanted to win that game, but then Virginia somehow goes on to beat Louisville last week. I mean, that was one of the worst football games that I watched. I was sitting with my roommate who really only follows the Big Ten and the NFL. He's looking at me. He was like, this game is so bad. Your team was playing so terrible, but they have a chance to win. So, dude, I don't know how Miami does it. Again, one more thing with the chain before we move on. Kirk Herbstreit was talking about how, and other announcers were saying how that Miami needs to go away from the chain. If they're losing, do they bring the chain out? Absolutely. You know why? We were down by, I think, 2 scores, between 2 or 3 scores against Virginia. Guess what happened? That chain came out, whole new ball game. Became a game where Miami had the lead, gave it back up, and then kicked a field goal for the win. Doink. But, I mean, it brings them back hype. Now, should you bring it out when you're down by 40 to Alabama? Probably not. Probably your best interest to leave it in the box. But, dude, any team that, copied Miami, because everyone did, whether it be Coastal with the cloak and sword, or Tennessee with the garbage can, or, Georgia with the shoulder pads, Georgia Southern they also have a chain. They got a touchdown guitar. Bring those things out, man. That gets the players excited. When you get a big play that can turn around that momentum, bring that thing up, because that's going to get everyone jacked up. I've never seen someone sad or disappointed to get the chain, man. Everyone wants to wear that $96,000 chain. But, one thing about this year, when you're looking at bowl projections, is we're getting about that time. It's week 7, week 8. You look at Miami, they're 2-3. You know when the last time powerhouses like Miami, USC, and LSU, all 3 did not make a bowl game? You know what year it was?
Oh, yeah.
It was 1960.
Oh, wow.
And we are on pace to where all 3 of those do not make a bowl game. And you know what? Make it more interesting. Florida State, they're not going to make a bowl game. Well, when's the last time those 4 didn't make it? I think, to kind of answer the question about the Mac Brown hype, I fall for it every year. So I really hope that I'm right one of these years. I'm going to keep falling for it, honestly, until another team in the Coastal gives me a reason to choose them. But the Coastal is wide open. I'm going to choose Carolina every year, no matter what. But will Miami ever be back? I don't know. I think that's really going to rely on the whole president and AD situation. I'm not on the Fire Manny board. They can go 5-7. I won't be on the Fire Manny board. I will be on the Fire Rhett Lashley board, and whoever the OC or whoever the O line coach is. Get those two and the DBs. Whoever, even if Manny is in charge of the DBs, then I'm on board. I don't really pay attention that much to who's in charge of who, but oh boy, those three have got to go. That is rule number one. Rule number two, I'm all for scheduling, more competitive games instead of Central Connecticut State. But is Miami trying to lose to every SEC team there is? Let's schedule LSU. Loss. Let's schedule Florida. Loss. Let's schedule Bama. Loss. Let's schedule Texas A&M next year. That sounds like a great idea because we couldn't beat Jimbo when Jimbo was at Florida State. Yeah, but better yet, let's go to College Station next year. Gives me a reason to check off a new stadium. But can we schedule South Carolina, which we actually did, but not for 6-7 more years? My God, if you want to be the SEC team that bad, schedule Vandy or Missouri or maybe even Tennessee.
Even Mississippi State.
Yeah, Mississippi State. Anyone. Get an SEC one, but it's not going to happen, man. One thing that we mentioned beforehand, Carter and Williams. I don't know how many yards they ran for last year. And actually, there goes one of the two right now for another touchdown against Miami. I don't know how many points. I think it was above 60. Dude, what will UNC run over Miami like that again this year? And let's talk about last year. Was that the best running back duo performance that you've ever seen?
Yeah, so I'll go to my grave saying, one, we didn't appreciate or realize what we had when we had it until maybe the last few games. Miami was kind of the wake-up call, which is crazy because Miami was like our second to last game maybe that last year. Michael Carter and Javonte are dominating the NFL right now, doing really good in the NFL. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen an offensive display like it. I think there was multiple records set. Those guys are so talented, and what made them special was sometimes you have two good running backs, but they're kind of the same. They're both power backs or they're both speed backs. Well, Carter was a speed back and Javonte was a power back. So it's like, well, you can just switch them in and out, and both can catch the ball well. They were dominant. Like they were league ready. Javonte was a 0-star recruit. Carolina, the only college to offer him, even though he was great in high school, won a state championship in North Carolina. So for them to become what they did, and they didn't play in the bowl game, so for them to kind of end their career at Miami like that, I know you didn't like it, but it was one hell of a way to go out.
Yeah, that being let's say I'm a neutral fan watching that performance, that's one hell of a performance. I mean, I don't know the exact yards, but man, it felt like it could have been anywhere from 500 to 600 yards that they put up. I mean, it was almost like you were playing on NCAA 14 and you had the setting on rookie, because usually, man, it's hard to run an NCAA 14. I mean, it's almost getting to the point where it's kind of hard to run the ball in college. It's really hard to run the ball in NFL because my running backs give me like 3 points every week in fantasy. So clearly it's got to be hard to run the ball in the NFL. But my God, what a performance that was last year for not but one, but for two to go off the way that they did. And they kind of did it throughout the year. They looked really great. Like I said, they're doing good in the NFL. Miami's defense, though, I think it has the potential to where we can see that again, whether it's Sam Howell just hitting. If he can hit the wide open guys and they catch the ball, they're going to throw all over Miami. Like I said, Virginia couldn't catch the ball to save their life. I think Carolina could probably get about 200 yards rushing this week against Miami. One thing before we go into the picks, I want to mention Carolina has played all 6 games throughout the 6 weeks. Miami is coming off of the bye. And let me just read you their last few games off the bye. The last year of Mark Ritt on the bye, 2018. Loss at Boston College. Now we get to the Manny Diaz era, 2019. Loss at UNC. Loss at Virginia Tech. Loss at FIU, who's only won 1 game against a team called Long Island since they beat Miami. Now we get into 2020. loss at Clemson. I don't know if you count or not, but that's 5 straight losses. Then they finally got 2 wins, a win at NC State and a win at Duke. They are 2-4 in the Manny Diaz era, coming off the bye, and 2-5 when you include that last year of Mark Ritt. Now, like I said, we're gonna go into picks. Keep that in mind. Don't mention anything right now. Let's go straight to our picks. We got Clemson and Syracuse. Syracuse always gives Clemson a hard one. Clemson, the dynasty is over, according to Paul Feinbaum. Well, hey, if that's the case, the Alabama dynasty is over too. You know why? They both have one loss outside of Clemson's loss to Georgia. Let's not count. Let's just throw that one out the window right now because that was a 7-point loss to who was supposed to be a favorite to win the national championship now. And it was on a pick 6. So that's a scratch. Clemson lost to NC State on the road, an unranked NC State team who is now ranked. Alabama lost to Texas A&M on the road, an unranked A&M team who's now ranked 21. So I really hope that Paul Feinbaum calls out Alabama and says their dynasty is over too. Usually I don't defend Clemson, but this time I am, and I think Clemson big in Syracuse.
Yeah, Paul Feinbaum is a fraud. I've never liked Paul Feinbaum. I'm sure you have fans that listen to him or something, and you know he's popular for a reason. But at this point, I tweeted the other day, like ESPN commentators at this point are just yelling out things and seeing what sticks and seeing what people listen to. Clemson dynasty is not over, but I'll never pick Syracuse to beat Clemson. The day I pick Syracuse to beat Clemson, college football is done with. So I'm going Clemson easily. I don't think Clemson can score the ball, but Syracuse is just they're not a football school.
Right now, and I think if I'm not mistaken, they beat Florida State.
Syracuse?
Yeah,
I think they did. Yeah,
I think they did. So
I think everybody but Carolina has beat Florida State.
Yeah, pretty much. This next one we got Oklahoma State at Texas. Texas is coming off a brutal loss to Oklahoma. It has to be a mindset at this point. It's got to be a mind game that they just cannot beat Oklahoma. It's only I think of. I was actually walking out of the Tennessee game last Saturday. I saw there was like 10 seconds left. Oklahoma had the ball on the 33-yard line. I was like, okay, they're going to center it up for a field goal, you know, being like Miami. But it would kind of make a little bit more sense because the game's tied and, you know, yada, yada. But yeah, as soon as I turn it on, there's 1 second left, and there goes old buddy Oklahoma, 6 for the dub. So I'm like, all right. But, you know, the way college football is going, and you got Oklahoma State who's undefeated, give me Texas to win. It's in Austin. They're coming off a disappointment. I think they'll be pissed. I think they win.
This is an interesting one. I like Mike Gundy. But also Texas is kind of like Carolina and Miami for me. I like to see Texas be good at football. I just feel like football's right. When Texas is good, this is hard. Something tells me that Texas definitely could upset Oklahoma State, but that was such a bad loss last week. Either Texas is going to bounce back and win, or either it's going to be embarrassing again. I'm going to go Oklahoma State easily, but it could definitely go the opposite direction.
For sure. That's kind of what I worry about, you know, with these embarrassing losses and how teams react to. Speaking of embarrassing losses, Florida and LSU, this game was in Baton Rouge. Last year, you know, you had the cleat yeet, what cost Florida to lose that game. Florida is obviously I wouldn't say way. Florida is a somewhat better team than LSU. Florida, honestly, unbiasedly, you beat the worst team in the American Conference in USF, not by a whole lot. You beat FAU, who had a Miami quarterback backup, N'Kosi Perry, beat him by 21. You beat Tennessee kind of handily. You lost to Kentucky on the road. Give me Cleat Yeet Part 2. Give me LSU, man. LSU needs a spark. Ed Orgeron has to win that game. So give me the Tigers. Go Tigers.
Ed Orgeron is Gene Chizik .2. He had his one good year. He had his one great quarterback, and I think he's done. I've made a lot of money betting against LSU this year. I'm going to continue to bet against LSU. I'll go Florida.
All right, there we go. Hey. All right, let's see if you go against me here. We got Kentucky at Georgia. You know, being a coastal student, we are getting kind of shafted out of moving from our 15 spot. We just keep staying at 15. Teams in front of us keep losing, and we just keep getting jumped, even though we've won the last 3 games by, good Lord, like an average of 40-some points. I mean, we've hung 50 the last 3. So give me Georgia over Kentucky. Huge. I hope Georgia wins this game by about 35 to 42 points.
Georgia, obviously the best team in football. Georgia, easy.
Georgia, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Now we got BYU and Baylor. Baylor just come off a loss to Oklahoma State. That's their only loss this year. BYU lost to Boise State. So, I mean, there was a lot of hype to BYU. They were top 10. Now they're somewhere around 19, I want to say. But give me Baylor. I think Baylor is a better team than BYU, and they're going to walk them into the Big 12.
Wow. That's kind of a shocking pick. Maybe not, but I hate to go against you here, but I have to go BYU. Baylor was like, had that great era in like the early 2010s. And then obviously they got in all kind of trouble, fell apart. I have a tough time believing in them being consistent. I'll go BYU.
Yeah, so with these picks, I'm starting to realize a trend that I have going on here. I'm either going to look like the smartest man in college football, or people are going to watch this and be like, Hayden, what did you drink before this? Because our next game is TCU at Oklahoma. It's in Norman. Oklahoma just had that electrifying win where they benched Bettler Rattler, and they come back and beat Texas. Guess what? It's a letdown. The Horned Frogs, baby. Give me TCU.
I'm going TCU also.
TCU
I agree 100% with you there. I think that quarterback came in, looked good for that game. I don't think he's as good as he played that game. I don't think Spencer Rattler's as good as people thought he was.
Right.
I don't think Oklahoma's a good football team either. So, yeah, TCU.
Now, this next one, like I said, I was in Tennessee last week. They blew out South Carolina. They were up 28-0 in the first quarter. Tennessee has a more sober right to say that they're back, than Texas or Miami does. However, they get Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. It's a night game in Neyland. It's a checkerboard out. Dude, I was all on the hype last week. Give me those banjos. Give me Tennessee. Give me Rocky Top by a million.
I'm a big Lane Kiffin guy. Ole Miss all day. Tennessee would be the fun pick. Don't get me wrong. I hate that Ole Miss wet the bed against Alabama. I was thinking even if they didn't have to win the game, but be respectful. And I was like, okay, Lane Kiffin's turning around Ole Miss. I'm still not sure, but I'm taking Ole Miss.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin, great coach. I love that, he's got a good team at Ole Miss. I love that they're ranked. They got the second Heisman contender right now based on the odds. I think Ole Miss would be a really good team. However, I still think Ole Miss goes 9-3, but give me the Volunteers. I'm on the hype train. Got another one that I'm going against the popular opinion. We got a ranked NC State team in Boston or in Chestnut Hill playing Boston College. Last week, Boston College, or I think it was about 2 weeks ago, Boston College won the Clemson, and they dang near pulled it off. NC State beat Clemson for the first time in a while, and they needed it. Well, then they had a game where they played a very good Louisiana Tech team. Do not get me wrong. They beat them by 7 right at the end. I think they sealed the game with the interception. Give me Boston College to go 5-1.
People maybe not outside the ACC don't realize that Boston College was actually supposed to be a dang good team this year. I think they lost their quarterback very early. Still a good team, though. This is a game that we all know NC State loses. NC State does this. Okay, you beat Clemson, and then you probably should have lost again last week, and you're going to lose this week. I'm taking Boston College.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. Before we get to our game, we got a interesting one out west. It's a 1-point spread. A top 20 Arizona State team against a Utah team who's kind of similar to us. Every year they have the hype of they're going to win the Pac-12 or they're going to be the runner-up, and they finished the year 6-6. This was such a hard game for me to pick. I actually went with the ranked team on this one, and the team that is favored. I got the Sun Devils. Competing for the Pac-12 championship. So with that being said, they're probably going to finish like 7-5 and not do that. But for this sakes being, I got Arizona State close at Utah.
Since I took the safe route on most of these and you took the risky route, I'll go opposite this time and I'll go Utah.
There we go. Yeah, at least this is probably the most diverse picks that I've done all year, and I've probably done about 11 or 12 of these. However, I am going to differ on one of my traditional picks here at the end. You know, Coastal's on a bye this week, and every week I always pick Coastal. Miami and Carolina is a 3:30 game in Chapel Hill. Like I said, Miami's 1-4 when I go. They're like 2-0 when I don't go. The game's off the bye. Miami is 2-4 off of the bye with Manny Diaz. I'm going to be at the game. You know, there's a song that gets sung in Chapel Hill, and it's actually one of my favorite songs. I think it sounds something like "When I Die on my Tar Heel." That this is the closest thing I got.
Oh, wow.
I'm going with the heels. Like, let me take my chain off. I can't disrespect the chain with the Carolina hat on. I am a Carolina boy, Miami fan at heart, but my brain told me to go with Carolina.
I know what you're doing here, Hayden. You're doing reverse psychology. I know exactly what you're doing. You're thinking, hey, maybe if I show up picking Carolina, I've never done this before, it'll work for me. I can't pull against the heels. I have to go Carolina. I think it's going to be a horrible football game. I think it's going to, what I enjoy about this podcast that me and you are doing right now is that these universities, these programs are so parallel right now. Like, it's like hype. It's like you should win the Coastal. Fun coaches, really. And then everything just tumbles down. And then we meet each other and it's a good game. And then we do it all over again next year. I have to go the heels. I think it'll be a real close game. I wish it was a night game. I know we haven't earned it, but sure wish we could do what we did a few years ago. Can't believe you went heels there, though. I kind of feel bad.
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry that this hat's kind of a red tint, but
oh yeah,
it was the only one that they had at the store. So I had to go with it. Like I said, I'm going to Chapel Hill. I'm from North Carolina. I've been to the games at UNC a whole bunch. I'm sure you know all about it, but for those that don't, you definitely have to go to Franklin Street Friday night. Hit up top of the hill, and guess what? The state fair's in town. I'm more excited to go to the state fair Sunday than I am for this game. No offense to all my friends and family I'm going to see this weekend, but like you said, this Miami Carolina game, I was talking with people at work because every week they're starting to ask me, like, all right, Hayden, where are you going this week? What game are you going to see? Because I guess I've been to 9 or 10 games already. I go to a game every weekend. And I was like, well, I should be seeing the ACC Coastal Championship this week. But instead, I'm going to see who finishes second to last. So honestly, this game might be so bad that it's actually good, just like that Virginia-Miami game. I hope it's a good game. I really do. I hope Miami pulls it off. I hope you're right about my reverse psychology, but I don't think I'm going to be right, man. My dad was telling me we should go back to Tennessee this weekend and watch Lane Kiffin and Rocky Top. But, Matt, it was fun. I'll put on the chain one last time. I can't wait. If you got any recommendations for people to go in Chapel Hill, throw them out there right now, like maybe Timeout. I think they got that name from Chris Webber, most likely. But, Timeout was a good place I went to. Definitely top of the hill. Go study at the library. Definitely know what I mean by studying there. So, Matt, any recommendations in Chapel Hill for anyone that's coming to a game either this Saturday or anytime in the future?
Yeah, well, first I want to say I love what you're doing. I love the life you're living. I love the games you're going to. I love this podcast. And thank you for having me on. If you want to have a great time in Chapel Hill, that sounds like an SNL sketch. If you don't know it, look it up, Stefan. But if you want a great time in Chapel Hill, He's Not Here is my go-to place to go. Timeout is great after the game. Don't get it before. It's a carb loader. And honestly, we have a few tailgating spots. Parking is kind of trash here, but just tailgate, have a good time. Hayden, I hope to see you before the game maybe, and I look forward to it.
Of course, yeah, man. I'll be there at 8 a.m. bright and early in the Manning lot. If you're a Miami fan or want to see a throwdown, definitely go to the Manning lot. It should be insane. After the game, man, I definitely do plan on sticking around. Let's go to He's Not Here. I've been there before. It's been a while since I've been there. I partied there when they won the national championship. I was down on Franklin. I got to burn couches and jump over them. So I've had my fun experiences at Carolina. I hope everyone gets to experience it. But man, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. I love listening to the pod. Get them on the pod, as you guys say. Maybe one day get on that thing with you guys. But until then, I look forward to seeing you in Chapel Hill.
I've enjoyed it, man. Thank you.